And welcome back. And we are now at part 4 of this week's New Comics, bitches! So we're on to our picks of the week. So, number 3 in our picks, this was a really, again, another difficult week to pick ultimately the best book of the week. But, because we had 3 really exceptional books all duking it out. And this is the first of those 3. It's not the best of the 3, but it's the first of the 3 that we'll talk about. And that is Fatale number 3 from Brubaker and Phillips. What can I say? I mean, this kind of, Lovecraftian noir tale being told in this narrative style, working again with the the tropes of the femme fatale within the tropes of noir fiction, but adding this horror element to it. It's just amazing. This character of Josephine is somebody that you really feel, okay, this is somebody that perhaps if you were to meet her, you would probably follow to the grave, because you don't have any idea who she is. But you're totally, you feel that A, you want to protect her, and B, she is more than capable of protecting herself, as is proven in this particular issue. And we get more of a handle on what exactly her abilities are. Certainly not to their full extent, and we haven't really seen too much monster-y stuff yet, but it's always just under the surface. And that's, again, this whole comic book essentially is about this kind of, this layer of just, there's something brewing here, and you never know when it's going to come out. And so we have, in this particular issue, we have a split narrative going back to, going from the present, an interlude, as they put it, with Nicholas Lash, and with all the, him kind of reading and rereading this, this kind of lost manuscript for, for his deceased uncle's, this book that he just never put out. And maybe is just a little bit more true than he wants to believe. And then ultimately going back to the past, and with with Hank, and with Josephine, and with the the dirty cops. And there's a great line here. It says, do you know how shit like this makes the department look? This isn't Chicago. Now, of course, being from Chicago, I can see where they're coming from, because yeah, there was, and probably still is, a great, it's very well known for being a corrupt city. So I don't know, but anyway, it's just, when you're dealing with this, these monsters, the 2 guys with the bowler hats and the glasses, very, very, very creepy, and with Hank's wife, with his pregnant wife, and what exactly has happened to her. And it's obviously not good. And it's pretty obvious that it's death. I don't know. I mean, there's just, there's so much you could say about it, but words don't quite do it justice. I mean, it's Brubaker and Phillips, arguably the best creative team, fucking phone, arguably the best creative team in the past several years, the past couple of decades, I would say. And they just, pretty much everything that they do is way, way far away above what else is going on in the comic world. So just absolutely terrific stuff. Super solid 5 out of 5 for Fatale number 3. I also was glad to read in the back column, written by Brubaker himself, that this is actually, it's not designed so much as a mini-series as it is, they thought it was going to be, a certain amount of issues, then it turned into like 11, now it's turning into 15, so That's great news, because this is definitely like Scott Snyder and Scott Tuff's Severed. This is definitely a comic that I want to go on. I want to continue. I want it to keep going on and on and on and on. Um, but anyway, speaking of Scott Snyder, here's one of our other picks of the week, and that is Swamp Thing #7. Uh, yeah, we have Snyder, Yannick Paquette and Scott Snyder have effectively filled the void that has been this void that has been there for decades now. After Alan Moore left Swamp Thing to go on to do Watchmen and V for Vendetta and so on and so forth. And after he left that, there was this void with the character of Swamp Thing, and you had many people that were writing him and doing the artwork, but nobody has captured that feeling of the Moore age of Swamp Thing than Snyder and Paquette. And that's one of the reasons that this is just so goddamn brilliant. It's the artwork, the framing of it is stunning. The creativity and how Paquette sets up a page. Again, if for no other reason, I mean, Scott Snyder is a fucking superstar right now. He is the guy that should be kind of leading the charge for DC rather than Jeff Johns or Jim Lee. But they both kind of have their picks of who they want to work with, and what I think that Snyder has done here with what he's done with American Vampire, and also ultimately what he did with Severed, and what he's doing here with his 52 comics, which are of course Batman and Swamp Thing. He's gotten the best people he can for these titles, and Yannick Paquette is just, his artwork is just something that is just, it's as good as the writing, and that's saying a hell of a lot. It's basically what we have here in this issue is Alec Holland finally, because at the finale of the previous issue we had Alec Holland being basically run through with a chainsaw. So we're like, this doesn't look so good for our hero, because I was kind of digging the fact that he was still human but still had some control over the green. But now that he is basically nearing his human death, the Parliament of Trees has called him before them, not to save his life, but to prolong his suffering as long as they can, because he failed them. They're burning. They're dying. Parliament of Trees is going away. But here we have a very, again, this tale of these star-crossed lovers, which is not as present, obviously, as it was in earlier issues of Swamp Thing. But, the star-crossed lovers of, Alec Holland and Abigail Arcane, they're not supposed to be lovers, but there's just, they can't, one can't truly exist without the other, but in order to save her, ultimately Alec must sacrifice his body once again and give in to the biorestorative formula, fueled by the power of the Parliament of Trees, the fading power of the Parliament, to once again become the monster. And that's what this book is. I mean, it is this amazing tale of love, rebirth, and ultimately the choice of the choice to become this hero that he knows that he needs to be in order to save the woman that he loves. And I can't say any more about this that I haven't already, because it's just Swamp Thing #7, such an easy 5 out of 5, and perhaps a 5+ out of 5. This is just a supremely good issue in a supremely good series. But ultimately, what took the cake this week was not a huge shock, but was just a massive undertaking. Just such a just an awesome comic. Was the Manhattan Project's #1. Now, this is the new series from the creative team that brought us the Red Wing, which is Jonathan Hickman and Nick Pitarra. And what we have here is basically a fictionalized account of not only the life of Dr. Julius Robert Oppenheimer, but also and his involvement in the Manhattan Project, which was that of the atomic bomb, but how other forces in science actually did lead to these it did lead to these other discoveries, let us say. It's hard to, but there's also this story about and we have appearances from people like Einstein, but the Manhattan Project, it is, like I said, it's a number of different it's a number of different possibilities. And as the title itself, it's the Manhattan Project suggests that there's definitely more than one thing going on here. And with these, for instance, these kamikaze killing machine, pseudo robots, powered Zen powered by death Buddhists. It's shit like that. Because again, this is where Hickman, I think, really, really, really shines. And that's when he's able to introduce his high concept stuff with a platform that ultimately is healthier for his expression. Because I'm not quite sure it's completely working in something like the Ultimates. It has worked more often than not in FF and in Fantastic Four, but sometimes I think his reach is not his reach extends his grasp, but again, that's a good thing. I would rather have somebody who's trying harder to make something that's smarter, rather than have somebody who's just Jeff Johns, who's basically just kind of getting along doing the status quo. So, Jonathan Hickman has my eternal respect for doing something like that, but for creating a tale like this, and basically the truth about Robert Oppenheimer, and this is obviously not like I said, this is not based on fact. I've actually read about Oppenheimer. And just even recently tonight, just kind of was on Wikipedia looking at some facts about him. But he didn't have a twin brother. But that's ultimately to the advantage of the book, because the book allows us to tell a tale of this kind of Elseworlds-ish what if type of tale. That, what if the Manhattan Project itself was the Manhattan Projects? What if it was projects plural, and there was more than one thing that they were working on, and it wasn't just an atomic bomb, but it was all of these strange, secret, amazing, marvelous pieces of technology that there's no way they could possibly exist in the real world. But with with what's going on here with the projects themselves, this just blew me out of my fucking socks. I read it and I was just like, I was just entranced. I was amazed. I kept, even after it was over, I'm like, there has to be more. There has to be more. Because I really, really wanted it to go on more and more and more and more and more. And when you do get to the final reveal, it's wow. So 5+. out of 5 for the Manhattan Project's #1. Anyway, that's it for this week of the Shadow Gallery for New Comics Bitches. So I'm at Donnelly92274 on Twitter. Of course, James Donnelly on Facebook. Here at YouTube. Comment, criticize, complain, subscribe, thumb it up, thumb it down. Tell me what you have to say, people. That's what I want to see here. So that's it for this week for the Shadow Gallery. James Donnelly signing out, saying goodbye.